The Chronicle thanks our 2023 Meet the Candidates sponsors: Ann Colton Films, Flossmoor Station Restaurant and Brewery, Jonathan Kane Salon and Spa, and Tom Brabeck Law Office. With their help, HF voters will be well informed on Election Day, April 4th.
I'm Beth Larocca, and I'm running for the HF 233 board because I think I can complement the current board, and I think I bring a unique skill set as a retired educator, both a teacher and an administrator. I know I'm passionate about education and the benefits it provides. I think it's extremely important. I am the only non-incumbent who's been attending board meetings and committee meetings for the last 2 years. I think the new administration is doing some exciting things, but there's more to do. There's always more to do. And I think together we can elevate HF and maximize every student's potential. Currently, they're going to use it for this new science wing and the culinary project. I think in the past, well, first let me go back. The 10-month in reserves has kind of elevated our financial rating by the state, and we are in great financial shape. I think in the past, and I think somewhat currently, we're holding on to some money because we don't know what Illinois is going to do. They've been threatening to make school districts take on more of the pension burden. There's also the funding in general, and that was always questionable for a while. It's been good lately, but we also still are seeing the benefits of the pandemic funds. So who knows what will happen there. I think it's something we should look at. I do. And I think that the community, I'm concerned about it. I'm a taxpayer, okay? So I don't think there should be too much. And I know they're rebating, which was a big thing. I'm glad that started when I was on the board. And I think it needs to continue. But I know there's other entities that take whatever's excess and gives it back. Now, you wouldn't want to give all of it back, but I think it's something you have to consider your constituents. So it's kind of a balance. I actually think that what would help the entire community the most is there is a procedure 3010 that is about capital improvements. And it's actually a procedure, but policy and procedure that wasn't exactly followed with the fine arts expansion. And I don't think there's a formal document for this one either. I know there were 2 board members that asked for it. I don't know that they've seen it. I haven't seen it. But I think if we did that, it's supposed to give you the benefits, the pros, the cons, to not only the students, but to the community. And if that was put in place and then shared with the community on the website, everybody would be able to see that. Because I know there were still, a lot of people were happy about the fine arts expansion, a lot of people were not happy about the fine arts expansion. And maybe it's people with kids in school who are happy and those that aren't, that I don't know. But I think that's being open and transparent, and the data should be there, and we should all see that. I know there's a long-range plan. It's a 10-year plan, I believe, but the board doesn't have any input into that. At least it didn't when I was on there. And the culinary arts is supposed to be on there, but I don't recall seeing that, but that doesn't mean anything. It's a big document. And wouldn't that be nice to have on the website for everybody to see? I'm big on communicating and transparency. I want to know where my money's going. And if it is going to something that it is necessary versus, oh, wouldn't this just be nice to have? I'm going to start with the tuition payments because that's easy. They don't ever get paid. When I was on the board for 4 years, nobody ever paid. I don't think it's something that is ever collected. Okay. In terms of residency, I hear the same things you're talking about. I think that they do a good job, but there's just not enough of them. So it's an arduous process. They have to have a lot of documentation and observation. So they want to have all that so that when it goes before a hearing officer or whatever, they have everything. And I've never seen one of their cases overturned. Okay, but there aren't enough residency officers, and we probably can't afford to have all those folks. I don't think this is unique to HF. I think every school district deals with it. But at one point we discussed hiring a business that also checks residency to supplement what the 2 officers at HF would do. 161 uses this company. And I think at the time they had found 12 students that were not residents in 1 quarter, and it took HF an entire year to find 12. So I thought it might be a nice supplement. The administrator in charge of that thought it would be great. I thought that was going to happen, and when I didn't get reelected and I asked the previous superintendent about it, he said, well, I said I would hire them if I felt we needed it, but I don't think we do. I think, and if this is what the perception is in the community, I think the district needs to either allay those fears, so to speak, or do something about it. But I've also talked to one of the retired residency officers who believes there is easily 300 students at HF that are not legal residents. So that's a lot. And I don't think 2 people could handle that, or 4 or 6. But I think, and I know it's a sticky question, as a board member, as a taxpayer, I would like our funds to go to the students who legally belong here for supports, et cetera, as opposed to students who aren't here. You know, we're not using our funds on our kids then. And they might be able to benefit even more if we could do that, if that makes sense. I think when the community feels like maybe there's a little bit of, we're not getting the whole story, then they start to think that could be the case. I don't know the answer to that. That would be, I hope that's not the case. I very much hope it's not the case. And as you said, the board doesn't have a direct role, but the board's lone employee, the superintendent, should be able to explain, here's what we're doing, here's how we're going to handle this, here's how we can prevent this, or at least lessen it, we hope. But I think that is a concern. And I think there should be some answers to the community, to the students. The students need to feel safe. And if you think about it, there's a lot of, the kids walk between buildings. There's a lot of opportunity for different things to go on. Pandemic has wreaked havoc in education. I believe that HF has a lot of supports in place. One of the things they started, and it was already kind of in the works before the pandemic, that just brought it to the forefront. And I can't think of the name of it right now. Maybe it's Viking Compass. I don't know what it is. There's a late arrival, or it's a Wednesday, and they do different things in like a homeroom, I'll call it. So that's one thing they're doing. And I think there is a curriculum that goes with that also. So I don't know the final details. I heard some of what was going on when I was on the board previously. I hope it's hopeful. They ought to be collecting data on grades, on the supports in place. There's a lot of tutoring. I would have to look, because I think the kids that were already in high school when the pandemic hit are probably not as far behind or at risk as the kids who maybe were in 8th grade and then maybe missed freshman year on campus. I think that's the hard part. You just totally missed how you're supposed to behave, how you're supposed to stay organized, those kinds of things. I'd be curious to see. I know they have some supports in place. They have a reading class. I worked with kids like that my whole career as a reading specialist. And there's a lot of things you can do, including, this might sound a little extreme and somebody might get upset, but requiring freshmen to be in a study hall so that somebody can monitor them, maybe pull them out, work with teachers. I don't know if that's going on. That's something that could. Counseling, a lot of the counselors have to, know their students well, make sure they're in the right courses, get help right away. I'd like to see grades entered a little more frequently, maybe. That might help. I know that I work with some students in the community, and I know kids who had to take their final exam and their final quarter grade wasn't even in, which is hard then because you don't really know how to prepare then for that final. How much do I need to study? Maybe I need to study for this other class a little bit more. There's a lot of, study skills is not something that just happens anymore. Maybe we need direct instruction on it. Usually you should know who your most at-risk kids are coming in, and maybe there's some things we need to do a little differently with those kids without a stigma attached to it. But that's near and dear to my heart. Always, it was before the pandemic. How do you elevate kids from the middle? Get them to take maybe an honors class, things like that. Make them feel more successful.